right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. This is our second event since the holidays where we are doing our bonus world's most exciting classroom event for classrooms in Australia, New Zealand, and surrounding areas. So a shout out to the classrooms joining us tonight and to those who will tune into the recording as well. So let's do a little bit of catch up to get things started. I'm going to share my screen and let's see what's been going on with Oosterschelde since we last checked in. So what you can see is if you look in the Pacific Ocean and try and find her, she is gone. We got to go all the way across the ocean and we have to get to the Falklands. Let me zoom in a little bit closer here in the Atlantic. So there we go. There is where the DARWIN200 team is right now. We'll be there for a few more days as the ship undergoes some maintenance. It was a big 7-week journey to get across the Pacific. The waters were pretty rough at times. So the ship definitely needs a little tender love and care before we have another ocean to cross. This time we're going to cross the Atlantic Ocean in one go. If possible, we are going to stop in South Georgia. Now there is problems with bird flu, so we might not be able to explore as much as we might want to, but we'll see what happens when we get there. Another stop we're hoping to make is the most remote inhabited island on the planet, Tristan da Cunha. The catch here is that the conditions often make it difficult to impossible to land. So if we get there, the weather's really bad, we might just have to sail on for our next destination, which is Cape Town. We'll be there in April. I will be there in Cape Town, and we're going to do a ton of live events from the field. So it should be a lot of fun. So that's kind of a little catch up. The Oosterschelde has successfully again crossed the Pacific Ocean, this time in one go, through the Roaring Forties and the Furious Fifties, rounded Cape Horn, and there we go. The passengers are off. Maintenance is happening. Some of the camera operators are in the field, so we should have some really good footage to share with you next week. I have a little bit I'll share with you today. And then we will set sail again with a new researcher, a new group of passengers, and we will cross the Atlantic Ocean. So that's where we are right now. I'm going to come back from that screen share. There we go. And we have an amazing live guest joining us today. I'm really excited. Joining us today will be Dr. Vanessa Parada. She is a wildlife scientist, woman in STEM and STEAM, science communicator, author, and vessel operator. Her research uses innovative technologies for wildlife conservation. She's also the lead scientist of the scientific and citizen science program, Wild Sydney Harbor. So learning more about the wildlife that lives in the harbor and beneath those waters. She's also an author. So 2 kids' books so far, The Voyage of Whale and Calf and Oceans at Night, as well as a paperback, Humpback Highway, diving into the mysterious world of whales. And what's even cooler is Vanessa was a leader for one of our DARWIN200 leaders who joined us in Tasmania. She took her out into the field, and we'll probably talk a little bit about that experience today. So let's go to Australia and let's get Vanessa in with us. Hi, Vanessa.
Hello. Hello, everyone. So nice to be here. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Yeah, it's great to have you with us. Not only as a super cool scientist, but also as a member of the DARWIN200 team, helping us get a leader out in the field and having a really fun experience.
Oh my gosh, it was such a pleasure and such a wonderful experience for me as well to be part of the DARWIN200 group, but also learning about our blue backyard here in Australia. So it's one thing to do research, but to really take the time to go into the field, understand the animals you're trying to learn more about, and then share knowledge via this program, which is great.
All right. Well, I think the first place we should start is if you want to take a couple minutes and just let us know who you are, Vanessa, and then we can dive into some DARWIN200 action.
Oh, yes. So for those who don't know, I'm a whale scientist or a wildlife scientist working predominantly on whales. My work is all about the conservation of large marine animals like that of the humpback whale. This is Winston. He's an Australian East Coast humpback whale, and he makes the migration from Antarctica every year, where he's feeding down there right now, gobbling up food, and then he'll switch directions when it gets too cold in Antarctica. That's right. When it gets colder in Antarctica, and he'll swim all the way up north along the Humpback Highway to the warmer waters where he'll have the whale disco, where he'll sing, whoop, 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 and then he'll reproduce and have little babies. So that's some of the work. I focus on the humpback whale. My work uses cool tech such as drones to access whales in unique ways, like the collection of lung bacteria, also known as whale snot, working with citizen scientists to document the recovery of whale populations, working with, as Joe was saying, the citizens of Sydney to learn more about our blue backyard through Wild Sydney Harbour, the first ever dolphin studies of the dolphins in Sydney Harbour, and then trying to link that with working with Indigenous knowledge holders here in Sydney, the Gamay Rangers, to see if the dolphins from Sydney Harbour go around to Gamay or Botany Bay. There are so many things that I do. I don't have all day to chat about them, but they're just a few things that I'd love to share with you all.
All right. Very cool. Well, we are going to talk a little bit about your Darwin 200 experience, which was pretty amazing. I was in Tasmania shortly before you arrived. And yeah, I've been able to see a couple little clips that Josh shared with me, who was the camera operator out in the fields with you and the Darwin leader, Hindara.
Yeah.
And it looked amazing from the couple minutes of clips that I saw. So I'd love to talk a little bit about it today.
Yes, please. And I've got a few little special photos to share with everyone. If you'd like to see them, you just let me know when, and we can take that visual journey to see what we got up to, Hindara and I.
All right, perfect. Well, I think maybe that's the best place to start. Tell us a little bit about your Darwin leader, where she was from. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was very lucky to be matched with Hindara, and Hindara is a 20-year-old from Indonesia. So if you could think of two of the most opposite places in terms of climate, Hindara is from the nice warm tropics, and then she had the opportunity to come over for the first time to Tasmania in Australia, which is right at the bottom of Australia, and it's at the doorstep of the Southern Ocean, so it's very cool down there. And Hindara is such an energetic, enthusiastic, next generation scientist that it just makes me so excited, because that's what I want to do. I want to help enthuse that next generation, just like you, Joe, which is good. And that's why we're here chatting about this, because we love the environment and we want to have other people championing the environment for us all. So Hindara was very receptive to learning about creatures that moved a lot. And I say that because if you think about a whale, a humpback whale, they're the size of a school bus. They're big, and Hindara is mainly used to seeing corals because she's an avid scuba diver. And corals, as you know, they don't move, and they're very susceptible to the world around them because they can't move.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am just an equal opportunity kind of diver. I love the stuff that doesn't move much. I love the stuff that moves fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's, I know you have a few images queued up. Let's take a little look.
Yes. Okay. So these images are here to help show you the excitement of the trip that was. So I really hope that you get to enjoy the special snaps that I'm sharing here today. This is Indara. This is who I'm talking about. And this is us on the tall ship, which was really cool, in Tasmania. She was just a wonderful, wonderful. Oh, I'm so grateful to have worked with Hindara. She's a wonderful human. And together we shared some fabulous experiences, like being in the field and seeing the geography and the ocean background of Tasmania. And for me, this was actually a first. I'd only ever taken a vessel from Hobart down to Antarctica, so I didn't get to explore it like we had the opportunity to do so. And fortunately, we were able to, on the Humpback Highway, see a humpback whale. It happened at the very last part of the day, but this is rather a humpback whale. You can just see this is pointy bit here is its nostrils, because they have nose that when they breathe, and their nostrils are on top of their head. This whale, I believe, from seeing many whales over time, I believe this whale was most likely feeding, because its behavior was, it was here and then it was there and then it just kept moving all over the place. So it was really interesting. And we were actually at the end, or I should say the start rather, of the Humpback Whale Highway, which is that migratory corridor we use, or at least the whales use, to go up and down the coast. And there's another beautiful snapshot of juicy whale snot. If only we had our drone there. When a whale takes its breath like this, it's just got it's not water necessarily. It's a juiciness of bacteria coming from their lungs. And so this was a beautiful description of it. And talk about good weather conditions. And then this is another snap showing the dorsal fin of the humpback whale. And on top, it's got these little barnacles, which is very normal. And then you've got a little bit of scarring on the body here, which was really cool to see. This is normal as well. We also had other species that were very interested in us and enjoyed the vessel, which was common dolphins. This is a common dolphin here, and I love this photo because it shows you that these are marine mammals and they're like us. They breathe air, and just as they come up to take a breath, which is that, and then it's kind of like we're running, and it's I'm running a race. These animals, they start exhaling prior to reaching the surface. So that was really cool. And then we also saw these weird spaceship-like animals, which I'd never seen this big. These are lion's mane jellyfish. They are really big. So if I was to be hugging one of those, they would be right in my arms. They're around 40 kilos or so. So they're big, juicy, blubbery, big jellyfish, which were pretty amazing to see. And then whilst we were speaking about whales, and this is what was really important, we were looking at an animal that is very migratory. We had a unique opportunity, and all these animals are representing the Southern Ocean and the important ecological roles they play in the Southern Ocean. And for whales, that is feeding in one area, pooing in another. Their presence is showing us where nutrient-rich waters are. There's productivity. They're feeding in our waters. But we also had a unique opportunity to show Hindara an animal that was quite, let's just say, out of the norm. And some of you may have heard of this animal, this particular individual. You're probably looking at this going, what is this? Is it an eel? I don't know. I'm just making that up. But we had a southern elephant seal called Neil, the seal that we heard was around Tasmania. So we thought we'd take the opportunity to see if we could have a sighting of Neil, the seal. And in fact, we did. We found him. And Neil we since had the opportunity to speak to elephant seal scientists, because elephant seals, like whales, are really amazing oceanographers. The way they move in the ocean tells us about where there's good food, and they can also at the same time, by wearing equipment on top of their heads, measure ocean currents, salinity, depth, temperature. They can measure all these amazing things. And at one stage in the past, elephant seals were probably hanging out at Tasmania's waters. But unfortunately, there was hunting going on, climate changes. These animals are not very common and not an everyday occurrence here. So Neil, we soon learnt, was probably his mum probably pupped or had him here. And that's why Neil is returning to these waters every now and then. Although this is a very lovely, voluptuous photo of Neil. This is his backside. That's his little bum there with his lovely little fins. And you can also see on his belly, he's got really good body condition. This is good to see. You can see that there's little nails on his little hair, on his flippers there, and he can give himself a scratch. And this is one of my favorite photos. Because Neil was in a paddock, this is really weird for me to have seen an elephant seal in a paddock. But when we were able to stay a good distance away from him, even behind a fence, so it was beautiful for viewing. But when there was a really loud motorbike or car coming by, he would often raise his head. And so you can just see the juicy rolls that he has there. He looks very cute. And you're probably thinking, doesn't really look like an elephant seal. Well, that's because he's not fully grown yet. So he doesn't have his proboscis, which is that funny little thing that they all have, their nose, which will show that he's pretty much a male. So that is some of my very favorite snaps. But the key message here was to really embrace the animals of the Southern Ocean through that of marine mammals, whether it be a whale or in this case, the opportunity to see a southern elephant seal, which was a wonderful opportunity. And so going from that tropical world to animals that live in the Southern Ocean and how they're equipped for being in that cool environment, like the blubber you can see, the fat you can see on this animal, it's pretty amazing. And the fact that these animals go where they want, when, and a lot of this is dictated by changes in our environment, is very important. So I hope everyone's enjoyed some of those photos. I'm going to stop sharing, but that truly is a special snapshot of our time down in lovely Tasmania, Australia.
Yeah, I want to show one more little piece of media here. A few weeks ago, Josh had sent me a clip with some Tasmania stuff. So this is just maybe a 30-second clip of being out on the boat, out on the Tasman Peninsula. So give me 1 second to cue that clip up. We'll take a look at that, and then maybe we'll start thinking about asking to see if there's any questions there from classrooms. So there it is. Let's take a look at this little clip together. There we go. Oh man, Tasmania is so rugged, especially this part here, the peninsula, this kind of last bit of land before you head out into the Southern Ocean.
It is such a beautiful place.
Got some dolphins nice and close.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow. There's Hindara. That's us trying to find the whale. Oh, there it was. There it is. Oh, that was very special. That was amazing. I still can't believe that this was the day. Look at the dolphins at the bow of our vessel as well, by the way. Those dolphins, they really stuck around.
Yeah, that is so cool. Hindara was obviously very excited to see that humpback whale. So it looked like a great experience for her. I'm sure, like we try and do with all the Darwin leaders, they've shown promise in conservation. They're young, they're excited, and hopefully we're sending them back to their home countries with some new skills, some new ideas, and 25, 30, 40 years of conservation ahead of them. So
exactly. And enthusiasm, that's what we want. We want the enthusiasm, the excitement, and all of these opportunities provide a wonderful connection for people all around the world. And Hindara and I still remain connected, which I love.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, let's get into some Q&A action. We've got a great group who loves our Australian events, Naracoorte I think primary school in South Australia. So Jack would like to know about how big elephant seals grow.
Oh, okay. So and I will point out, I'm not an elephant seal specialist, but I do know some elephant seal facts. So elephant seals, they're obviously in the Northern Hemisphere as well. So I've seen them off Monterey there, if I've got my geography right. Mm-hmm. They're massive. And elephant seals in the Southern Ocean are really big as well. So put it this way. You think about your family-sized car. An elephant seal can be as long as that, sometimes maybe longer. But when they stand up, and when I say stand up, when they get up, because they move around, so a true seal moves around like a caterpillar on land, and you can't see their ears. That's a true seal. Whereas a sea lion, they move around very, with their flippers, and you can see the external ears. So they can go probably a few meters or so, but when they stand up, they can stand up taller than an adult man. So they can be more than 6 feet high. Huge animals. And even seeing Neil, I still was taken back by how big he is.
Yeah, I have a friend. She's a researcher in California. So she's often out on the beaches. She puts cameras on them.
Yes.
Records what they get up to. And so we did a live event with a group on the beach. We had 2 males fighting. It was really, really cool to be able to see that live, because that is something. 2 car-sized creatures colliding like that.
And Joe, did she mention that the males, because the males compete with each other, but a male who has access to the females, he's called the beach master.
That's right.
I love that.
Right. Very cool. So there are lots of questions about elephant seals coming in, but humpback whales are fair game as well.
Yes, that's
so
right.
Don't be shy if you have any burning humpback whale questions. But, Harrison, we saw Neil chilling in that field there. Is that unusual to be kind of that far from the beach, do you think?
Oh, well, that Neil is a unusual case, and I would say he's out of the norm. But elephant seals are typically found in those beachy areas, not really in a paddock. And to get to that paddock, he actually had to go upstream. Neil is an exception to the rule. Usually we see them on sandy beaches.
Yeah.
But hey, it just goes to show that was nice and soft for him. And I can't help but seeing what Isaac has written as well, Joe.
Yeah.
Was he making any noises? Yes, he was. And don't think I'm farting or doing, it was more like like a noise and a like that. I do a lot of animal noises through my career, but it's really important because sometimes you just hear this random noise. And in fact, when we first saw him, I didn't think we'd see him, but it was just this mound and it was a lot of random noises coming from him from this paddock. So it was quite amazing to see. And it also kind of gives you an idea of their size, especially like when a humpback whale takes a breath. Sometimes it's like this noise and you're like, whoa, these animals are huge.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. So you mentioned he's not fully grown. Ruva's wondering about the age. Is it under a year? How old do you think Neil might have been?
Oh, you know what? I actually don't remember this. I'm really sorry, but I'm being a good scientist and not acknowledging this. Neil, I believe he's older than a year. Yeah, he's way older than a year. I think he's been hanging around in Tasmania for at least 3 years or so. So I could be wrong with that. But Neil is not young. He's kind of like, we can consider Neil as a teenager. So Neil's kind of hanging out, working out where his life is, what he's up to without anthropomorphizing it. But remember, Neil's mum, and this is what I learned from the elephant seal scientist, Neil's mum had him in the area. So that's why Neil has like this ning, ning, ning. He's orange. He will keep coming back to this spot. But he's probably working out that, there's not many other Neolettes or Nilalinas around. And so maybe will his movements dictate, will he maybe go, I just need to find some females, and will he explore the Southern Ocean?
All right, fair enough. On YouTube, Lily is tuning in, and Lily would like to know what elephant seals eat.
Oh, well, elephant seals would eat a variety of creatures, and I most likely would say fish. They may also eat octopus as well. But again, I'm not an elephant seal specialist, but I would also say that these creatures, because if you look at their teeth, okay, so they actually have really nice teeth for grabbing at things. And so as a biologist, I can cheat, because if we know what these animals have, what they look like. So for example, a humpback whale like Winston has no teeth at all. In fact, if he was to swallow you, he couldn't. And I say that because we had the engulfing of a kayak the other day. And so much of my science communication was to say they can't swallow us. So thinking about elephant seals diet, they would need to be quick and bite onto things to then snatch things. And elephant seals and fur seals that we see here, they don't have knives and forks to use when they eat. So if you're able to snatch onto something and rip and tear, then that'll be a very helpful way of getting it down and eating.
All right. Well, let's move away from elephant seals for the moment. Sasha's wondering, that ocean ride, was it smooth? Was it bumpy? How was it on the little Zodiac?
Oh, fortunately, that was a nice smooth ride, because I'm going to let you all on a secret. Okay, ready? Gather in. I may be a whale scientist, but I get seasick. And so for me, that was a good day because it was nice and flat. So, but at times when we were going super fast, it was like a boop, 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 and it was fun.
All right. Really cool. Okay. We want to know some information about the size of humpback whales. Like Jerky, for instance, is curious about how wide they are. Maisie's wondering if they're bigger than a plane. Can you size out a humpback whale for us?
Okay. Humpback whales are not bigger than a plane, unless you've got a small private jet, which I've never even thought about, but they're small. So a humpback whale is probably around 15 meters in length. But thinking about width, again, if you're in the school bus, think about being in a school bus. Okay, I can see my friends here. A school bus is as wide as a whale, a humpback whale. If you're in a family-sized car, that's probably the width of a whale, a humpback whale, that is. So they're really big. You could easily sit within a humpback whale if you wanted to, but I advise against doing that. They are large, and their arms in particular, their pectoral flippers, here we go, I'll use Winston here. They're very large. In fact, they're the largest of any whale species. They can be over a meter, and they are just a huge animal. In fact, I've been lucky to be in the water with a humpback whale in Tonga, and they're so big that I've literally had to look from one side all the way to another side just to see the entire body. So they are big, and they have pretty good eyesight as well, which is something to remember.
All right, very cool. Well, just talking about those pectoral fins, it got me thinking of a video clip that I took when I was on that same boat the week before you. And while we have you here, I thought maybe we take advantage of having you, this baby whale. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what this baby whale is up to. So just give me a moment here to share my screen.
I'm
It's a
excited.
very
I
fun
love
clip.
seeing
I
this.
really enjoyed watching this baby whale kind of swimming along next to us. But here we go. Let's take a look at this little clip.
Ooh. Okay. It looks like it's upside down, Joe. Oh,
Yeah.
yep. Peck slapping. So it's doing a roll. Breath. And then here we go again. Oh, okay. It's committed to a little bit of a dive. Oh, what is it going to do? Actually, the water there's not too bad, Joe. It's quite nice.
Yeah, it wasn't rough, just a little cloudy.
Yeah. There's a lot going. Oh, turned around. It's doing the classic, the roll and flip and a bit of the I'm on the side of. It's very playful. Breath, dorsal fin. How cute.
Do you think it's just completely straight up play? Is it practice for the future? What do you think this guy's up to?
Yeah, I reckon it's having a fun time. Like I think it's very relaxed. It's just doing a range of behaviors. I'm assuming mum is down below.
And
there we
you
go.
saw 2 fins there, 2 dorsals.
Yeah. So maybe the mum's just having a rest and the calf's just being a little kid and just enjoying being with mum's presence. Maybe it's just had a feed. You never know. At that stage, they'll probably still be feeding on milk. They'll feed on mum's milk there's big mama there next. Oh, yeah, there's the calf. So they'll feed on mum's milk for up to 6 months or so. And then when 6 months kind of switches over, they might go to krill and fish as well. So what a fabulous sighting.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And that answers Mia's question. Fish and krill are some of the things that humpbacks like to eat.
Absolutely. And again, they can't swallow us. Their esophagus is probably around size of a ball, a baseball. You know, they're not that big because they're designed for eating smaller food, even though they're really big.
Yeah. Some students may have seen that clip from, I think it was Chile. I think it was Chile.
Yes.
Where the kayaker was just in the wrong spot at the wrong time when the whale came up to feed. But within a couple seconds, popped back up to the surface because, like you said, the whale can't swallow.
And I reckon, Joe, they were probably whale watching, given that someone was filming, and they were probably enjoying these whales. And then that whale probably maybe moved suddenly to go where the prey was, and then came up, and then the whale's probably gone, oh, what
was that?
Yeah.
Okay, last question for you from YouTube. How long are the whales pregnant for?
Beautiful question. Humpback whale female is pregnant for 11 to 12 months. And then they have their baby. They may be fasting, not eating, feeding. Males might want to breed with her. She's probably really tired. She needs to keep a lookout for danger, like killer whales, human, everything. That's a multitasking mum. And she'll be with the calf for around a year. And then after the year, they become a yearling and they usually do their own thing. And I document that very journey in my book, The Voyage of Whale and Calf, and also in Humpback Highway, because did you know what? A lot of Australians here just didn't understand why the whales do what they do. So that's why we're having discussions like this. And it's really important to learn about the biology of these creatures, which I'm so fascinated with.
Yeah. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for being with us today. Pleasure to see you again. A pleasure to steal some of your time.
You're welcome.
Really cool research that you're doing, citizen science work, working with the Indigenous peoples of Australia as well, because they have so much knowledge that we don't have. So combining that Western knowledge with the Indigenous knowledge, I think is a really cool and important aspect of science.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Joan. It's about time we do more of that. And also seeing the next generation Gamma Rangers just rise and rise above to learn more about the country and sea and land country that they love and want to protect as well. So it's a two-way system and it's so exciting.
All right. Well, Vanessa, enjoy the rest of your day. And I have no doubt we'll connect again soon.
Absolutely. See you later, everyone. Bye-bye.
Right. Yeah. Bye, Winston.
Bye.
All right. Very cool to have Vanessa with us. And in the field with one of our young Darwin leaders and doing really cool research too. Flying drones through whale snot. That is pretty darn cool, through the whale blow. And there's all kinds of information we can get from that. And it's in a way, it's similar to what we're doing on the ship right now with some of the science. So as we crossed the Pacific, we were taking water samples and we were packaging them. We were vacuum sealing them. That's the word I'm looking for. And the idea is our researcher who's going to take a look at those, look at the eDNA, environmental DNA. So what was in the water earlier? Like Vanessa said, we have so much to learn about what's going on under the water. We miss what's happening, but we can get that peek by looking at what was left behind by some of the organisms who swam through that water. I think that's so cool. Okay, well, let's get a little crash course in how the rest of today is going to look. I have a cool video of some Falklands wildlife shot by some of the DARWIN200 team, which we'll share. We have a brand new experiment, and then we have our curiosity of the week. So I think I'll start with the brand new experiment right now. Remember that the experiments, you have 2 weeks to try them in your classroom or at home. Send in some pictures trying that experiment, and then you'll have a chance at winning a gift card, an Amazon gift card for your classroom. So we don't have the results this week because we just did our first experiment since the break last week. But we will have the results from that experiment next week, and you can take a look at that or go back in time, the DARWIN200 YouTube channel, and find last week's episode if you want to see what that experiment was. This week's experiment is kind of a cool one where you can kind of take a look at what's kind of moving around your backyard that you might not see. So let me cue it up, and then we will take a look at this week's experiment. I think it's a pretty cool one. Let's watch this together.
This week's experiment is inspired by pitcher plants. We're going to create pitfall traps. These are traps that catch invertebrates so you can find out what incredible little mini beasts live close to your home or to your school. The idea is very simple. It's basically a trap whereby invertebrates fall inside and can't escape. So you can come back the next day and find out what creatures you've caught. Making a pitfall trap is really quite easy. You've got to dig a hole, so having a little trowel is very useful for that. You then need a container into which your invertebrates will fall. This can really be anything. It could be little plastic pots or yogurt pots, such as these. You could also use glass jam jars. I'm going to use these glass scientific beakers, but it really can be any glass or plastic container. The important thing is that the inside has to be slippery so that the invertebrates you catch can't climb out. You then need a form of bait. I'm going to use a bit of biscuit and some banana peel. So we're going to see if that attracts any invertebrates. It's a good idea to set up a control pitfall trap in which you have no bait at all. That should reveal whether the bait makes a difference. Last of all, you need a cover for your traps. This is very important so that if it rains while you set up your traps, the traps then don't flood and fill up with water, which could kill your poor little invertebrates that you trap. So it's very important to make a cover. You can put a piece of bark or any object that you find out where you set up your traps, but I really recommend cardboard. It's really easy and you can fold down the edges to make a little shelter, like so. Then you can nestle that over your trap, so it's really easy for invertebrates to find their way in, but it shelters the trap from the rain. Okay, let's go out and set up our traps. Step 1. Find a habitat where you think invertebrates might live. Forests are great for this, or hedgerows as well. Step 2. Dig holes for your pitfall trap and make sure that the top of your container is the same level as the surface of the ground. Step 3. Put the bait into the traps. Remember, it's a good idea to leave one trap without any bait at all. This will be your control to see how effective the bait is in attracting invertebrates. Step 4. Cover each pitfall trap so it's protected from the rain. Then you're all set. Leave your pitfall trap for 24 hours, then come back and see what you've caught. Please note, I'm doing this experiment in the United Kingdom, where there are no dangerous invertebrates. But if you live in a country where there are invertebrates that can sting or bite you, you need to do this experiment very carefully and under adult supervision. What results did you find in your pitfall traps? Which bait was most successful? Did you notice differences between the invertebrates caught in the pitfall traps with different forms of bait? What about your control experiment with no bait in at all? Did that catch any invertebrates at all? Or were there any surprises or really unusual animals caught in your pitfall traps? Download an instruction PDF for this experiment from the DARWIN200 website and send in your results within the next 2 weeks for a chance to win prizes. In 2 episodes' time, I'll share with you what I found in my pitfall traps. It should be really interesting to compare results from different places around the world. Good luck and see you in 2 weeks' time.
Okay, there we go. I think that's kind of a fun experiment to see what's in your backyard or what's in your schoolyard. Pretty easy to do. Any kind of container that's kind of smooth and slippery, whether it's made of glass or maybe a really smooth plastic could work. Bury it in the ground. And then you've got to get that little bit of bait inside. Maybe it is some cookie pieces, maybe it's some fruit pieces, and then see what crawls by and falls into that pit. A couple things to remember. One is don't leave it for too long. So if something falls in, you don't want it to become trapped in there and to die. You want maybe after a day or two to be checking it and then let anything go that you found inside after maybe you take a picture of what was inside. And then like Stu said, depending on where you are in the world, insects can bite, insects can sting. So it's best to be careful and get some help if you're going to try this experiment at home. Or you can try it at the school, which could be a cool spot to do it. So there we go. 2 weeks to give that experiment a try. I'll put the link up here. You want to send some pictures of what you found in your pitfall trap to classroom@darwin200.com. So classroom@darwin200.com. You also still have a week to practice our previous experiment and then send us in some pictures as well. So very cool. Our pitfall trap experiment lets us kind of see what's invertebrates, what small creatures are living in our backyards, maybe our schoolyards, wherever you decide to try that experiment. So we're going to show a little clip of the Falklands. So I'm going to share my screen one more time here. I'm going to show you where the Falklands is one more time. It is a really unique place in the world. There we go. Let's make it a little bit bigger. There we go. And let's zoom in and take a look at what the Falklands looks like. So there we go. So you can see there's 2 rather large islands that make up the Falklands. And then there's tons of little islands scattered around this archipelago of islands. It is rugged. It is wild. It is windswept. You're not going to find many trees in the Falklands. It's very open, grassy kind of land, and it is a haven for wildlife. So just like you hear about the Galapagos being a really cool wildlife spot, lots of biodiversity, the Falklands contains a lot of really unique biodiversity as well. There's several species of penguins that call the Falklands home. There's elephant seals like Neil, who we met through Vanessa's presentation. And then I'm going to share a little clip of some of those elephant seals, as well as some of the penguins and some of the other really cool animals that you can find living in the Falklands. We will not be here very long. It's just about 6 days in total to get the ship changed over, do any repairs that we need to do, get the new passengers on board, and then we're off and we are sailing through really remote parts of the planet once more. South Georgia is such a cool island. Again, home to a ton of penguins. You'll find elephant seals there as well, maybe leopard seals, some other cool seal species. So there should be some really cool life to see while we're here. Tristan da Cunha, if we're able to stop, if the weather's not too crazy, it's really just a speck in the middle of the ocean. It is the most remote inhabited island in the world. I think there's somewhere between 200 to 300 people who call it home. Obviously, a lot of it is dependent on supplies. They grow a lot of their own food as well, but it's going to be a coin flip whether we can stop or not, whether the ocean conditions will allow. And the last stretch of the Atlantic will take us to Cape Town, and we should do some really cool, really special live stuff from Cape Town. I'm so excited to get there and catch up with the ship. but that won't be until around the middle of April when the Oosterschelde makes its way there. So I promised you some Falklands wildlife, so let's take a look now at some Falklands wildlife. If you have any questions, I can probably help you out. It's an area that I know relatively well. But for now, let's just take a look at this really cool place. Okay, there we go. There's kind of a cool look at some wildlife in the Falklands. You saw a couple penguin species there, king penguins, which are the second largest penguins. You saw gentoo penguins. We saw Neil, some of Neil's pals, some elephant seals. And you saw two big males fighting there, which was pretty cool. So the males take control of a beach. They're the beach master. They hog all the females on that beach to themselves. And if other males want to try to come up to the beach and take over and be the beach master, well, they have to fight for it. And oftentimes the fights are pretty rough. They can get pretty banged up, pretty scratched up by those sharp teeth. And that male does its best to hold down that beach and monopolize control and access to all of those females. So I've got some questions in the chat here. A few more questions popped in. Cool. So let's start off with, how fast do penguins run? So Henry's curious about that. The easy answer is not very fast. Land is not a penguin's favorite environment. So they'll come on land to rest. They'll come on land to lay eggs and raise chicks. But when they're getting their food, they're spending a lot of their time in the water. So on land, maybe a couple of kilometers an hour for a short period of time. But in the water, they swim much, much faster. In fact, those gentoo penguins that you saw have the record for being the fastest swimming penguins. And that's about 35 kilometers an hour. So if you want to put that into perspective, a human would struggle to reach something like 1 kilometer an hour, whereas the gentoo penguin can just take off at about 35 kilometers an hour. So fastest swimming birds, that's pretty cool. Let's see. What do penguins eat and drink? Eddie would like to know that. So fish are pretty good. Little squid, krill, things like that in the water. Penguins are pretty fast, so they can kind of swim and get into those schools of fish and catch what they want. And then drink, they probably don't drink very much. They can't drink the salt water for obvious reasons. It's too salty. But they would get a lot of hydration from the food that they eat. So the squid, the fish, the krill have a lot of water within them. So they'll get a lot of their water from their food sources. Where are we? Harry wants to know how long a penguin can hold its breath. And that's pretty darn important for a penguin because they're hunting underwater and the fish aren't on the surface. So anywhere as short as, say, 3 to 5 minutes. But then some penguins, like the emperor penguins, which are our biggest penguins, you'll find them in Antarctica, they can hold their breath for up to 20 minutes, even longer, a little bit longer than 20 minutes. And then they can dive as much as like 500 meters, so half a kilometer. So they can go down relatively deep when they're looking for what they like to eat. What else do we have? How old are penguins before they get their adult feathers? That's a good question. So penguins undergo, well, when they're born, they've got that nice, soft, fluffy, downy feather. That's pretty important. It keeps them warm. The Falklands, Antarctica, these are pretty cold places. So that layer of feathers is really important. But then they undergo something called a molt. And a molt is when they kind of lose those downy feathers. And then their feathers grow in, that they're kind of their waterproof adult feathers. So penguins are ready to go into the ocean after a few months. For the most part, the season isn't very long. Let me just double check the exact amount of time when the young ones do. So looks like it can be as quickly as within a few months. So a few months of being fed, growing larger, and then starting to molt those feathers and to bring in some of those adult feathers, those waterproof feathers that they are going to need to have into the water. So penguins molt all the time as well. So new feathers grow in, new swimming feathers grow in. So that's something that's going to happen throughout their lives. But yeah, those downy feathers are super important for those really young penguins. All right. It looks like that might be the end of our Falkland animal questions. So hopefully next week I'll have a few things to share with you. A connection from the boat. So we'll catch up with Tom and Mara, who are on board right now. Josh, our camera operator, who I think many of you have met in past events, he'll be on board shortly. He's going to be on board when the ship sails across the Atlantic Ocean. And then hopefully some new wildlife clips to share with you. We'll see what they saw while they were down there over those 6 days. I hope it was some pretty cool stuff. Well, the last thing we need to do today is look at our answer to last week's curiosity of the week. And then I've got a brand new one, a tricky one for you this week. So let's take a look at the answer to last week's curiosity, and you can see how you did.
Back. Last week, I asked you to try and guess the identity of this strange object. Now, I do know it looks a little bit rude, like someone's bottom, but it is a serious question what this object is. Did you guess correctly? Well, it's actually the world's largest seed. This is called the coco de mer. It's from the Seychelles Islands in the Indian Ocean. It's related to the coconut, but it's a different species, although it does grow at the top of a palm tree, a bit similar to a coconut. Believe it or not, when the coco de mer was first observed by French and other European sailors several centuries ago, they actually couldn't believe or understand where such a big seed came from. The French sailors actually thought that there were giant coconut trees growing underwater in the sea. And that's why it's called the coco de mer, which of course in French means coconut of the sea. Well, this was a bit difficult to identify. Now let's find out this week's curiosity and see if you can guess it correctly.
Okay, so there we go. The coco de mer, the largest seed in the world. Coconut of the sea. You heard how it got that name. It can actually float. So if it does fall into the water, it could potentially drift to another island and then grow when it reaches that other island. So yeah, the Seychelles is where you're going to find the coco de mer, little archipelago of islands off the coast of Africa in the Indian Ocean. So the coco de mer, really cool curiosity of the week. And a shout out to our MPS crew in South Australia who sent in the right answer this week. And we'll send them a gift card that they can use in their classroom. So thanks so much for sending in that curiosity of the week. Let's take a look at this week's curiosity. I think you'll need the whole week to think about it, maybe do some research and see what you come up with. Let's take a look at this one together.
Back, everyone. Can you guess what this object here is? It's a very strange, curious object, and if you look really closely, you'll see it has a very, very intricate structure. It consists of a lattice of these white fibers. They're actually made out of silica, so it's very unusual. Join us in 1 week's time to find out the answer of this curiosity.
All right. I wasn't kidding when I said that this week's curiosity is a tricky one, but you got a clue there. It's an intricate pattern. It's made of silica. So maybe that will help you think about this week's curiosity of the week. And then send in your best answers, your best guesses to classroom at DARWIN200.com, classroom at DARWIN200.com. And then, we'll have a prize if anyone's able to get it. And we will reveal the answer as well, which I'm sure there'll be some curious folks wondering just what this week's curiosity is. Well, a huge shout out to Vanessa for joining us. It was great to have Vanessa joining us from Sydney today. We have to end off today, as we like to do here, with a huge thank you to our sponsors, our supporters, and our partners. Without them, we wouldn't be hosting classroom events, sailing around the world, bringing young Darwin leaders like Hindara out to the ship, as well as doing the research like the eDNA and ocean plastic research and other projects that we've gotten up to. So that's how we're going to end off for today. A shout out to our classrooms who tuned in today, sent in great questions, as well as those who are going to tune into the recording of the event. We will see you next week when we should be sailing, just started our journey back across the Atlantic. So until then, I hope everyone has a great week. Thanks, everyone.